The 1990s were in full force, and Iron Maiden had been reborn with a new style. Not only did the band largely retreat from the bombast and depths of Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, but they mostly stripped down the music itself. The arrangement of the songs in general on both No Prayer for the Dying and, to a lesser extent, Fear of the Dark were less adventurous and with less tempo shifts, as on their mid to late 1980s efforts. However, where No Prayer for the Dying was a less deep record, Fear of the Dark captured a bit more of the profundity that was missing in that release. The band were undergoing lineup changes and growing older in the midst of great transitions in the world, and you can really feel how much it got to them seeing these things unfolding on the world scene. Their songwriting suffered as they succumbed to more of the depression and frustrations of the world, reflecting a less constructive vibe into the finished songs. The cover for this album was also the focus of another transition for Iron Maiden, having been drawn by Melvin Grant, which marked the first time the band had used artwork from anyone but Derek Riggs. It reflected a more sinister side of Eddie, depicting him as some sort of a demonic entity, as opposed to the zombie mummy cyborg he had been up to that point. This lent a heavy air to the mood of the album itself, in which themes like elitism, provocation, war, phobia, betrayal, and even love were explored in their more destructive ramifications. Of course, the bomb dropped on the Maiden universe during this period was the departure of Bruce Dickinson, who left in 1993 after the Real Live tour. Dickinson has described this tour as a time of tension, citing the fans' knowledge of his departure, coupled with the atmosphere of the band dynamic, as contributing to his lack of enthusiasm for these shows. Today, let us navigate the maze of eclectic themes that characterizes 1992's Fear of the Dark. Hello again, Maiden faithful, as we delve headlong into a landmark release for the band, Fear of the Dark. This album is generally considered subpar for Iron Maiden standards, and I tend to agree as far as the average goes, but this album does have some of their better tracks on it. Judas Be My Guide, Fear of the Dark, Childhood's and The Fugitive are all stellar performances, and it really showcases the soul and heart that the band is capable of conveying through their music. However, dotting the landscape of this album are a few lesser songs that just don't capture the full range of moods of the intended subject matter, and this really pulls the rating down a bit. Most notable among these is the abysmal sophomoric track, From Here to Eternity, which was actually a single. It's a sleazy biker rock song with bad puns and over-the-top lewdness and innuendos, which have been more appropriate on a Motley Crue release. No knock on that band's musicianship. We're merely talking a matter of degrees of the more esoteric aspects bands can muster in being more philosophically inclined, introspective, thoughtful, and leaning away from the drug side of the fence. Anyway, Fear of the Dark is certainly a mixed bag, but even the lowest rated tracks are still among the better songs out there as far as popular rock music goes from an instrumental standpoint, and present a wide range of subjects which I covered in the intro. Iron Maiden are exemplary musicians and also very sensitive people who aren't afraid to express any one of the multitudinous emotions they feel about life in general. And that to me is one of the most important qualities in any good musician, the willingness to put your heart and soul on the line and show people who you really are through whatever kind of music that it is you like to play. It's not just about being technically proficient or your showmanship on stage, but a delicate balance of those aspects with the more thoughtful dimensions of inner expression. While not quite my favorite band, Iron Maiden have proven to me that they have quite a bit more than just a basic intuitive knowledge of how to accomplish this in their music, taking the helm with a steady hand. Those things out of the way, onward shall we continue into their 9th studio album, Fear of the Dark. Okay, Be Quick or Be Dead. It's got a nice riff intro to carry into the pre-verse, strong tempo and frantic vibe. The verses got some angry, gruff vocals by Bruce, conveying those emotions well, and the lyrics really call attention to the corruption in the world, more kind of an eye-opener for a lot of people. And the post-chorus probably the strongest part of the song overall, with the soul and the vibes and the instrumentation. The bridge solos really convey the rage and turmoil of coping with the world at present. On some critical notes, the main riff gets a little repetitive, and the chorus is also weak, both in the style it's presented in and the overall projection and vibes I got from it. Just not a ton of soul. It's an okay song instrumentally, but also kind of repetitive. So, there's the rating. Be Quick or Be Dead receives a final rating of 7.75 out of 13. From Here to Eternity. It's got a nice bluesy intro with a cool solo, and during the chorus it's got some nice strong vocals and instrumentation. The intro riff to the instrumental passage in the middle, it's got a cool simulation of a motorcycle revving, and the solos during that bridge are also pretty tight, conveying the race, frantic pace, and it's a pretty cool passage overall. On some critical notes, its lyrics are unnecessarily lewd, innuendos abound, definitely lyrically the low point of the album, and it's got an over-commercial feel to it as well, not much soul, and overall this is just a dud for them. Not a lot of passion or projection, shallow subject matter, and definitely a step backward compared to what they had done leading up to this point. So, here's the rating. From Here to Eternity's final rating, it is 6.25 out of 13. Afraid to Shoot Strangers. It's a wonderful opening, really setting the stage for someone in a military or war setting. Bass and guitar and keyboards work well together for that mood. Verses have strong vocal presence for someone in the trenches, pondering their situation and their life, the state of the world. And the lyrics do well at discussing all the strife and moral issues behind war. The post-verse riff is beautiful, and it really captures the emotion someone must experience as they can and do take a fellow human's life, really connecting and seeing them as brethren in this world. The tempo shift into the bridge as the battle rages on, and solos combined really convey well the vibe of your heart pounding, still wrestling with what all of this means, and the riff after the solos with the guitar harmony and everything, as the resolution, the guy decides to survive even knowing what he's doing. The chanting of the song title near the end in the final chorus conveys the mantra, telling yourself your own inner convictions about what's going on. Post-bridge riff, also, it's kind of a reprise of the verse riff from the beginning leading into the middle of the song. Beautifully done, and you can really feel his pain and reflection on what he's done. Critical notes, or neutral notes, the chanting of the song title does get a little stale after a while, and it's kind of repetitive. And there are just some passages here and there throughout the song where some subtle ways there's just a little bit of extra dimension missing that would have made it stronger song, better resonation with the motif. But in any case, it's a great song, so let's see what I gave it for a rating. And Afraid to Shoot Strangers receives a final rating of 10.81 out of 13. Fear is the Key. It's got a cool kind of sullen intro with a groovy, bluesy rock riff in the pre-verse. The lyrics reflect on the destructive choices that we make and learning to make better ones, and reflecting on modern society, the escapes people use to avoid facing the pain of living in the world with all the debauchery that we are distracted by. The post-chorus bridge has nice guitar layering, kind of cacophonous, and it conveys well the disenfranchisement and other resultant emotions we feel about living in the modern world, and the riff has some good soul to it as well in this passage. The bridge verse with the tempo shift is also cool, a nice build-up with the riffing and the acoustic guitar counterpoint. You can feel the desperation. On neutral or critical notes, the chorus is pretty pessimistic and lacks a lot of projection, and the bridge verse with its good parts, it still feels distant in the vocal department, and the song is overall kind of detached feel, even though it's a good song, and not a ton of heart or passion put into the overall vibe. So, there's the rating. And Fear is the Key gets an 8.58 out of 13. Childhood's End. I really love the intro to this song. You can really feel the soul, and it sets the mood wonderfully. And the pre-verse with the tempo, it works well, also conveying sadness, contemplation, uncertainty, and it's really very heartfelt. The verse lyrics are beautiful, and you can really feel his love for his fellow man and concern for them, even in light of modern society with its shortcomings. The chorus has an overall passionate and concerned vibe, and a thread of optimism tying it together with other observations he makes about the world. The first part of the bridge, you can feel the desperation and confusion and sad reflection of the state of the world, and the solos are also heartfelt with some anger, pain, sadness, and hope all bound together. And the second half of the bridge with the riffing and ambience, the keyboards in the background, it's just beautiful, and the guitar solos and harmonies really convey the sadness and also resolution to carry on in the world. Try to bring some constructive parts to it while you're coping with these problems. And on some neutral and critical notes, the chorus, with its good parts, does get a little pessimistic at times and hopeless, but like I said above, it's wonderful overall in the vibes. And some parts of this song just not as sparky and some inconsistency, but overall it's a great song, so let's take a look. And Childhood's End's final rating is 11.87 out of 13. Wasting Love. The opening and also the post-chorus harmony has a lot of soul to it. You can really feel the despair and loneliness, the insecurity, the desperation, and the longing for something better. The verse riff itself, very reflective vibe and recounting the past and your decisions you made, trying to bring hope and light to those that haven't yet been reached by it. The chorus vocals are really strong. Bruce Dickinson projects very well. It's beautiful and very soulful passage. The post-chorus riff leading back into the next verse is also great. You can really feel the heart and soul and also some sadness creeping into there as well. The bridge, also tight passage, it really explores the unchecked carnal side of us all and the pain and suffering it can bring to us if we don't strive for more constructive choices in our lives. On neutral and critical notes, just a little projection lacking here and there, a little repetitive on the final chorus, but still a phenomenal and very soulful song. So let's see what I gave it. And Wasting Love's final rating is 10.83 out of 13. The Fugitive. The opening really builds the mood well as he works for his escape, with the tension and excitement, the plotting and sneaking through different places in order to get out of prison. The first verse riff really paints a great picture of a cold fall morning with the crisp, cool air, the calm and fogginess, and also building up to the escape with the frantic thoughts and reflecting on what's happened. The chorus really reflects his desperation, frustration, entrapment, and his struggle to find evidence to prove his innocence. The second verse, as he's on the road with near panic, almost paranoid as he continues to flee, that's really projected well in this instrumentation of this passage as well. The bridge solos really project well the law closing in on him. They're close, but he just evades them. And overall, the bridge really conveys well the frantic chase as the police are so close, but he just barely eludes them. Critical or neutral note, overall it's a great song, but the chorus is just a little bit repetitive, and some passages throughout the song just not quite as strong, but in the end does a great job of painting the setting, and it's a wonderful song. So let's take a look. The Fugitive receives an 11.45 out of 13. Chains of Misery. Opening's got a nice sludgy riff, really conveys the seedy underbelly of society and people who try to control through fear, guilt, coercion, or manipulation. I really like the verse riff, and the passages really put you in that situation with someone trying to scheme to knock you down to their level. The pre-chorus riff is really cool, paints a good picture as that manipulative type of person turns the knife and you allow them to get to you and your inner state is in turmoil. The bridge intro, really good stuff, and the tempo slows down and you fall into the abyss of destructive thoughts in response to this kind of a person. The bridges are really nice, good solo, good harmony on the guitars, definitely do well at conveying one's tumultuous thoughts as the things said by destructive people take hold and you wrestle with your own guilt, regret, and anger. Neutral or critical notes, some of the vibes in the song just aren't as punchy, heartfelt, or soulful, but this is still a pretty good song, so here's the rating. And Chains of Misery gets a 10.11 out of 13. The Apparition. I love the lyrics of this song. It's got a cool metaphysical vibe, but also philosophical and observant from the perspective of the apparition himself. No chorus in this song, which is very cool. Slightly different chord progression to divide each verse, basically, is the only difference. And nice different arrangement for them. And the bridge has some cool prog rock vibes, the instrumental passage in the middle with some good guitar solos that convey the afterlife or your lack of comprehension of what's happening around you. On some neutral or critical notes, overall, musically it's not as adventurous, but it doesn't really need to be to work with the lyrics, so that's a neutral. Cool song, but a bit of the vibes feel a little detached or distant, and the bridge, despite the positive vibes, doesn't have a ton of depth in just some of the esoteric aspects, so there's the rating. And The Apparition gets a 9.75 out of 13. Judas, Be My Guide. I love the opening riff of this song. There's tons of passion, heart, and soul leading into the pre-verse, and that solo riff in that pre-verse is really passionate, got a crunchy riff on the rhythm guitar as well that really accents it beautifully, and the tempo is just amazing. The verses themselves, awesome, amazing soul overall. The chorus is anthemic and passionate, great vocal harmonies. There's a guitar harmony during the bridge with tons of clout, great vocals, solos are amazing and just passionate overall, a lot of feel to them, and overall just nails it and keeps the vibe of the song strong throughout that instrumental bridge. Neutral or critical notes, the chorus, just a twinge of disenfranchisement or more of a destructive perspective, and it's just a pinch short on some vibes and a little bit repetitious, but still one of their best songs, so there we are. Judas, Be My Guide receives a 12 out of 13. Okay, Weekend Warrior. It's got a nice intro with the acoustic guitar, mellow and contemplative kind of feel to it. The verses themselves have a taunting machismo vibe and really wrestling with your conscience versus conformity. Strong introspection on this one. And the post-verse / pre-chorus has some good vibes. And the chorus vocals also have some shining moments with some acoustic guitar passages to back it all up solidly, keep the flow going. And the bridge is nice with some wicked solos conveying how anyone will conform to some extent with their peers, still wrestling with their conscience. And the middle of the bridge got some great soul, catching the vibes of resolution of forgiving yourself for how you act when you're in a crowd. And this is a very different, cool sounding song for them. I love the use of the acoustic guitar, and instrumentally it's beautiful. The neutral or critical notes, I'd say the post-verse and pre-chorus, despite the strengths I listed, is kind of weak in the projection of the mood, and same with the chorus. In the end, it's just not as much feeling to it as it could have had, and it's repetitive in certain passages. So, let's see what it got for a rating. And Weekend Warrior's final rating is 9.6 out of 13. Fear of the Dark, the title track. It's got an awesome intro, really conveys the suspense and apprehension, the blackness of night, and the foreboding vibes of living with this kind of a phobia. Very cool lyrics, and it's good to see him owning up to this fear and insecurity and attempting to conquer them. The pre-verse first part, really cool vibe as he ventures out and the fear slowly surfaces. Really cool riffing, conveying the panic of coping with this phobia and the sheer terror as everything sets in your mind. The verses are awesome, strong vocal projection by Bruce, and the overall vibe of panic and terror is conveyed really well through the instruments as well. The chorus also does a good job of this, and the post-chorus 2 bridge section in the middle, the instrumental passages, it starts off with a great riff as the different irrational thoughts to justify the fear begin to exert their influence in his mind. The solos during the bridge really nail the terror further, really putting you inside the phobia. And the chorus bridge, I guess, really nicely captures the vibe of the song. Really strong projection and a nice cap off of the reprise of the opening part with the calm vibe as the fear subsides in retrospection. Neutral or critical notes, there's just a few tweaks here and there that could have made this a stronger song. Same with certain projected facets in the more esoteric values, but it's a great song. And other than the bridge chorus being a little repetitive, that's about all I have to say critical about this. It's a great song. I'd recommend checking it out. So here's the rating. And Fear of the Dark gets a 10.85 out of 13. Okay, so there you have a track-by-track retrospective of Iron Maiden's Fear of the Dark album. Now we're going to take a look at its average rating, as well as its ranking out of the 15 studio albums they've done up to this point. So, here we go. Alright, so in conclusion, Fear of the Dark receives a 9.99 average rating out of 13, ranking it 11th out of 15 studio albums. Okay, so there you are. Pretty solid album. Certainly not among their superb efforts because of some of the lesser tracks, but it's not a bad album, and it does have a lot of really good songs on it, some really solid ones. And so yeah, there we have it. I'm going to come back at you guys in 1 week's time with the Singles Collection 6, or the also known as the Fear of the Dark B-Sides. I ended up getting a Russian import version of Fear of the Dark years ago. I'll cover the backstory of that in the review itself, but suffice to say, it came with some B-side tracks, 3 to be exact, and so I'm going to do a little mini review of that for everybody 1 week, and then the week after that will be the X Factor. So it's 3 weeks in a row of reviews, the 2 studio albums consecutively with a B-side collection sandwiched in the middle. Feel free to leave comments, suggestions, or just converse how you feel about this particular album or anything else, guys. I know how the general scheme of things goes usually, but in any case, thank you for watching, and I appreciate you guys continuing on with me. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son didn't get quite as many views. I'm hoping by the time this is uploaded, No Prayer for the Dying will have generated a little bit more interest, even though it's not as popular of an album. So, take care everybody, and I'll see you in 1 week's time with the Singles Collection 6. Take care.